Hi, this is Bobby from Horse Tender Studio, and I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. It's January 2nd, 2021. So, early January is obviously the new year, but I think more importantly, it's NaMoPaiMo season. NaMoPaiMo runs the month of February, but signups are starting now, and a lot of people are deciding what projects to paint, maybe doing some prepping, getting ready. It always makes me think about trying to do some tutorials and talk about how I paint models. I feel like the way I do it is probably pretty beginner friendly as far as materials and so on, but a lot of people find acrylics hard to work with, and that's all I've ever done. So I've picked up a lot of tips over the years, and I'm going to try to share some with you today. We'll see how this works. I'm trying a new video setup. I think it'll work really well, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so first off, what you'll need is a horse. This is a Breyer Stablemate. He's had some prep work done, so I've sanded off the mold mark on the belly. I've gone around and sanded the seams on his legs and face, down his neck, tail. Pretty sure I got all of them. If I looked at him long enough, I'm sure I could find something else that needed to be worked on because I feel like prep is never done. Anyway, I've declared him good enough. And he's got a coat of primer, so he should be ready to paint. So, of course, you don't have to do all of that if you're just starting out. You can just grab a little stablemate or any kind of little horse-shaped object and put some paint on it for NaMoPaiMo. Then you'll need your paint. I use the craft acrylics. They're available at any hobby store, craft store, Walmart. Really easy to find and really inexpensive. I think at Walmart they're maybe like $1 a piece for like the apple barrel. Between $1 or $2 a piece. These are the colors I'm going to use today. This is actually a color that I just recently found at Walmart. It's the Apple Barrel, which is a brand that they carry, and the paint is actually called Chestnut. And I cracked it open at the store and took a look at it, and I thought that looks like it could be a decent little base for a chestnut horse. So this is a brand new color I've never worked with before. I'm kind of eager to try it out. So that'll be like my base color. I like to use metallics in all my mixes because acrylics can be pretty flat by themselves. So I'll be putting just a tiny bit. This is another new color. I use a lot of copper in my mixes, but this is bright copper, slightly different, so I thought that would be interesting to try. So these two are brand new. We'll be finding out how they work together. You and me and them together. And then my pretty much go-to for any kind of brown mix like chestnut, bay, anything like that, is if you want to darken it over like the top line. Horses are usually dark along their back, sometimes like on the face, the legs, whatever. To darken, I use burnt umber, and that works with any kind of red or brown mix, usually. A little bit of burnt umber will darken it. And then for your, oh, down he goes. And then for your lighter bits, which are usually like up under here, like the armpit, the flank area, maybe under the neck, the belly, sometimes on the legs, inside back here, I use raw sienna, and that works really well to just lighten up any kind of brown mix. So really, this is all you need to paint a horse. I would say these 4 colors. Or if you can't find chestnut, another really good color, let me pull it off my shelf back here, is burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is a really common color. You can find it anywhere. it's a really good chestnut base too. So I would say these three colors, that for like your base, that to lighten, that to darken, and then if you want to put a little bit of metallic in, you can go with either a metallic copper or metallic gold, and a little tiny bit goes a long way. So you can really paint a horse with just those four colors. You can add in black if you're going to do like a bay and you want to put some darker on the points, mane, tail, legs, and then you can add in white if you want to do some markings. But it's just super simple, the colors that you can work with. And then you'll need some paintbrushes. These are actually all cheap brushes, I believe, that I got a long time ago, and they are still going, still working. They've been used quite a bit. As you can see, they're all covered in paint. I work mostly in minis, stablemates, so I use a lot of small brushes. These are all like 000, 00. I think this one is a 1, but it's actually had most of the bristles cut off, and this is like one of my favorite brushes, and hopefully I'll get a chance to show you why. But I use a flat brush to work on the body, the bigger flat areas. I use a flat brush, and then the round brushes are for detailing and for like getting into the nooks and crannies on the legs, mane and tail, face. But you'll see that I start out with a flat brush and I use that one the most. And then you'll need something to mix your paint. I absolutely love this little ceramic palette. I got it when we lived in Japan actually, but I have seen them at craft and hobby stores. You can get plastic ones or aluminum. I really like the ceramic because I've used this so many times and you can't even tell. It just cleans out so nice. It doesn't stain. And it's just a super little thing. But you don't even need that. You can mix on like a lid for a yogurt container or butter dish or something. You can mix on a piece of aluminum foil, paper plate, anything. And for mixing, I actually, in the past, I've used the end of a paintbrush to mix my paints, and that works fine. But I really like flat toothpicks. You can get a little box of like hundreds, thousands of them. I don't even know. And they're just super nice for mixing paint, especially small amounts. Since I work with tiny horses and I work with acrylics, which dry fast, I'm always working with tiny little bits of paint. And then you'll want a paper towel to kind of blot paint on, also for cleaning your brushes. And I think the last thing is just a little cup of water. And that'll be to set your brushes in when you're done with them. And to wash, you can wash your brushes or you can just set them in there so the paint doesn't dry on them. Alright, so I think that's been plenty of talking. Let's see about painting a horse. So like I said, this chestnut is a brand new color for me. I'm curious to see how it looks. We're going to start with just a little bit there. And then also you want to shake your paints before you use them. I shook them up really good before the video too, but then I'm just going to put like just a drop of copper. Grab one of our little tiny mixing sticks. Pick this up so it doesn't shake the table. Mix that up really good. I might actually put a little bit more copper in. Maybe try another drop. Still looks a little flat. Just mix it up till you don't see the streaks of copper anymore. Alright, I think that looks better. Let's go ahead and put some on there and see what it looks like. Alright, so we're going to take our flat brush. I've talked about this before in some of my other tutorials. One of the biggest things I learned when working with acrylics is to work with small amounts. Even if you're working on a big horse, you want to work in small amounts and you want to move quickly, because acrylic does dry fast, and it's prone to brush strokes. So as you're working with it, you don't want to kind of fuss with it as it's drying, if that makes sense. You want to just put it on, spread it out quickly in a thin coat, and then just leave it alone to dry. You know, a lot of people say that the fast drying is a negative of working with acrylics, and it can be, but I also think it's a positive, because you don't have to wait long for it to dry, and you can paint an entire horse in one sitting if you want to. So something that I came up with years ago is to work in what I call zones. They're basically divided up sections of the horse. So like, this is the first zone, just the head, and stops right there. Second zone is the neck down to the shoulder. Then the shoulder is a zone. The barrel is a zone. And then the hip or rump, back end, butt is a zone. And then the legs are kind of their own thing. And right up here. And there's like these natural dividing lines on the horse. And what you can do is you can kind of feather your paint into those areas and then just keep working in that zone. But let me just try to demonstrate it. So I've got a little bit of paint on my brush, and I'm going to start on the face, work my way up to the cheek. You don't want to leave a big line, so anywhere that you're going to stop with the paint, you want to make sure it's thin, like that. See how there's just barely any paint there? Come around the cheek, make sure that's nice and flat. Get a little bit up under there, we're almost out of paint, and that's fine. And stop, that's it. Get a tiny little dab, do the ears. And I kind of used the forelock to stop that zone right there. Okay, now we can come from the ear down around the jaw, cheek. And we're going to get a little bit more paint because this is a bigger area. Kind of load it on there. Now your first couple coats, your first coat for sure is going to look patchy because you should be working in a thin amount. So you're still going to be able to see your primer or your base color of your horse in there. And if you see, once I put it on, I don't touch it. Get in and get out is what I always tell myself. Sometimes I'll see a spot that looks a little rough and I'll think, oh, I should go back and try to smooth that out, and it's a trap. Don't do it. There's the shoulder. Now, the barrel is the tricky part because you can't really do the whole barrel of the horse. In one go. I mean, what I mean by that is all the way around. On the neck, you see I could stop kind of at the mane, and there's like a natural little point to stop there. I'll kind of feather into the flank. See how I'm working the paint back and forth? That's another way to smooth it out, and it's probably time to go. We'll leave that. Oh, I did what I said I shouldn't do. A little bit of smoothing. It's okay. Just work quick. Now we'll start on the hip. Kind of dab it in there. Now, the biggest thing is if you have to stop in an open area like that, you know, there's no muscle line or anything to kind of stop in, you just feather it. Make it really thin, because that way when you come in from the other side or later on, you won't have a ridge there where there's too much paint built up. And we'll go down in the leg. I like to use round brushes on the legs, but I generally do my entire base coat with a flat brush. Sometimes you won't be able to get down in like the tendons or around the hooves or some of the sunken in places, but that's okay because you'll be coming back around to do another layer. And we'll go ahead and do his front leg. Right up to that kind of dividing line there. And it's important to remember that you don't have to completely cover the horse because you're going to be working in a lot of layers. So I don't fuss too much with trying to get them completely covered. Like you see in there, we didn't get any paint, and kind of like up in there, we didn't get any paint, but that's totally fine. As you come back and do the other layers, those areas will get some attention. So that's our first layer. I didn't get up in here all the way, but like I said, I'm not too worried about it. We'll be coming back around. Okay. Now, this leg is still a little tacky, so we'll see. Can we grab him this way? Yeah, I think we can grab him that way. So we'll turn him around. And we'll do the other side. You can kind of use that forelock again as like a stopping point. Another thing I do, which I've talked about before, now interrupting myself, see how the mane and the forelock creates a little area here? So that's a good thing because we can just work in there. Get a little bit under his cheek. Again, I'm working with really small amounts of paint. You don't want to get a big glob on your brush. Just dip the tip in there. See, you can't even hardly see what's on there. But that's really good for acrylics. Now, if you get a big glob and you go to put it on the horse, all you need to do is just spread it out as quickly as you can. Try to make it kind of, even, thin. Make sure there aren't any, like I said, ridges or big like globs or anything, and it'll actually dry pretty well. Scrub some in there. Now I'm actually going to go down the leg, tuck up into the shoulder. What I started to say earlier is something that I've always done, and I don't even know why, it just kind of makes sense to me, is I kind of put the paint on in the direction of the hair growth, for the most part. I mean, when you see me doing a lot of the back and forth, obviously the hair doesn't grow all crazy like that, but for the most part, I follow where the growth of the hair would be on the horse. It's just something I've always done. It just kind of makes sense to follow that flow. All right. Shoulder. Here's the zone I was talking about. Kind of just follow the curve of the shoulder. Kind of feather into the elbow area in the barrel. Do a quick smooth. Throw some in the main. Now the main, you can get a bigger glob of paint and just kind of start working it around in there. Bigger is relative, still a pretty small amount of paint, but a little bit on his forelock. Just kind of get that started. Okay. Now, this is something I said not to do, but I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to try to be brave and hope I don't mess up. So let's say you got a big glob of paint. Once again, that's relative because that's still pretty small. But let's say you weren't paying attention, you're watching something, you're listening to something, you're talking to somebody, making a video, and you really just load up on the paint and you go to put it on there and you're like, oh crap. Well, here's what you do. You just work fast. Work fast. Get it spread out as good as you can. Just kind of brush and scrub a little. Light touch. You don't want to really be grinding it on. And you spread it out. And then get out of there. And that should dry fairly nice. There aren't any big globs. There's like a little bit right there. Okay, that's fine. So that's kind of what to do if you accidentally kind of glob it on there. Now, because that edge is still drying, because of the globbening, I'm going to move down here and work on this leg instead of going into the hip area. Just give that edge a chance to dry before I try to kind of feather into it. Maybe do up in here in the manly bits. Underside of the tail, inside the legs. Just giving that edge a chance to dry a bit more. It looks like it's almost pretty much there. Alright, so we'll start from the back side this time. Alright. I'd like to smooth that out a little more, but I had to decide to get out. Like I said, get in and get out. Okay. So now, you can see that's still drying because I put quite a bit of paint in the main. That's still drying. But the rest of them is pretty much dry. So, the magic of acrylics is that this side that we did first is dry already. So what you can do is just keep going around. And I just do the same thing. Work in the zones. And I'm still not super worried about getting into every little nook and cranny. Each coat that you do should fill in a little more. But I think it's way better to go back and do more thin coats than to put it on too thick, because you're trying to get everything evenly covered too soon, or with the first coat, second coat, third coat, whatever. Usually they're pretty well covered by the second coat. Kind of wrap around here onto this side a little. But if I do have to go back even a third time or so, then that's fine. Working on the shoulder chest zone. Feather it into the barrel. Start down here on the elbow, the belly. I got a little more paint than I meant to, but it's okay, like I said. I think the most important thing trying to do any kind of art is just be willing to experiment and be willing to mess up, which is easier said than done because that is a struggle. But the good thing about acrylics is they are water-based, so they are really easy to strip. If I decided that something had gone horribly wrong at this point, I could literally just go wash this off. Once it's been sealed, it's a little harder to strip, but just kind of like raw acrylic, if you want to call it that. Uh-oh. Now see how I got down into the darker bit there? That's because I worked with it too much and then kind of started to scrub off what I'd done. So the best thing to do is just to put some on there lightly and then leave it alone. Anyway, yeah, I mean, if I decided that I really didn't like this and it wasn't working for me, I could go scrub this off in the sink and then give it another go. When I first started customizing Breyers, I just started using the cheap craft acrylics. And I just kind of never stopped. I've just been playing with them for years now and kind of learning and experimenting and creating some ugly horses and some pretty horses, and it's still, I mean, I don't feel right saying it's my favorite medium because I haven't really tried other things enough to have a favorite maybe, but these are my jam. I really like the quick results and just the ease of working with them. Go up into the chest a bit there. Okay. So that's basically second coat on the side we started on. Legs are still wet in the tail, but we're getting him covered. I think it's a pretty nice color for a spontaneous purchase and attempt at a new paint color. I think it looks pretty good. Uh-oh. That's alright. I touched his leg that was still wet. Still a little tacky. That's okay. Doesn't look like I did any damage. I think it was like right in there. I think his mane is still maybe a bit tacky because I kind of loaded it up, so we'll just leave that alone on this pass. Kind of round around the shoulder, back up. You can really see the difference between the first and second coat. Another thing you may have noticed is that I didn't water these down or use any kind of thinner or drying retardant or anything. Those are all options that you have with acrylic, and I know a lot of people talk about using them. Some people even say that they're necessary. I don't agree with that. Just from my own personal experience. But they're definitely something that you can try. For Christmas this year, I actually did get some artist acrylics that are in the tubes. And I did a little bit of experimenting with just one of them, and it was really thick. So I think that will definitely have to be watered down. But I find that these bottled acrylics or craft acrylics are pretty good consistency right out of the bottle. The only one that I routinely thin with just water is white. I find that white acrylic, even in the bottles, is thick. Oh, a lot of paint there. See what happens when you get to talking, thinking about other things. That's okay. Just spread it out. Spread it out quick. Now see, you can see brush strokes. Well, I don't know if you can, but you can see brush strokes in him with the thicker paint. But this should actually dry nice and flat. As long as it's mostly spread out and then just left alone. Don't touch it. Anyway, I find that the white acrylic in any brand is thick. And you can use it like that. It's totally fine. But if you do want a smoother, thinner coat, it's good to add a little water to it. Okay, that's most of his second coat. He's getting there. I think we can put some more in his mane now. Yeah, it's interesting. The white craft acrylic is thick, and then some of the lighter colors, like antique white or color that I really like for flaxen mane and tails, is called buttermilk. Sometimes it's a little on the thick side. So the lighter that the craft acrylics get, it seems like the heavier, thicker that they are. Black is the thinnest. Black is actually really thin, I find. I mentioned different brands, and you can probably see. I'll just set him down for a minute. Stay. You can probably see that I'm using different brands. This is Deco Art. This is Apple Barrel. This is Ceramcoat. There's also Americana. What other brands are there? Oh, Folk Art. Folk Art is a good one too. They make really nice acrylics, metallics. Anyway, all of those brands are interchangeable. So I have uh, a bunch of like each brand, just whatever brand I happen to find, or some of them have different colors. They all play very nicely together. You don't have to worry about staying in the same family of paints, the same brand or anything like that. Alright, so that's our second body coat. I'll probably end up doing a third. Definitely do a third because I didn't get the inside of that leg. And you can still see quite a bit of the, some of the gray primer showing through. So I'll be going ahead and doing a third, possibly fourth body coat on him and see how he looks. And then we'll come back and start doing some of the shading. We'll see how that goes. But I think I'll wrap this one up for now. I think it's been plenty long enough. Hopefully you learned some tips and tricks for working with acrylic, the bottled craft acrylic. And we will see how he comes along, and I'll be back with the rest of him. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys are doing well. Love you. Take care.